All right, guys. So, I'm Kelly, for those of you who don't know or can't remember, that's okay. First of all, thank you very much for joining me. I'm really excited to be able to give you guys this information and get you ready for a really, really exciting time in your life. So, basically, I am originally from Canada, moved here approximately 10 years ago and worked in the neonatal unit at the hospital. Had my son, decided to stay home and realized, wait a minute, when you have a baby, there's not a lot of resources here, and hence my company, Baby Whispers, started. We are getting more resources now, but sometimes just even knowing what's available to help you and meet other families is kind of limited. So I started with Baby Whispers, which was just supporting new families once they went home, and it's now expanded to now offer teaching and various other services to help muddle our way through. So you guys basically all introduced yourselves once you got here, so that's going to be part of the beginning of the class. So well done, A+ for that. So first off, let's start talking a little bit about the prenatal wellness. Because you're already pregnant, you've probably already done a little bit of your looking into what you should be doing when you're pregnant, what you shouldn't be doing, and kind of preparing yourself along. So we'll just kind of skim through some of it. There's 4 booklets that come with the class, one being about prenatal wellness, the other is the birth process, third is coping and managing kind of your pain and discomforts through pregnancy and then labor and delivery, and then the last booklet is on kind of what to expect in the newborn period, kind of at delivery, and then in the first few weeks once you get home. So with regards to the books, the reason I like these, a lot of other classes, they don't offer anything to actually take away. So you get a whole bunch of information slammed at you, and you get in the car and you're talking about it on the way home, and then you forget most of the stuff. So the booklets really do help because it gives you, visuals and just a way of refreshing yourself. So each book is laid out kind of in different topics, kind of as progression goes, as a book should be. So the first bit of this one just kind of goes through what you should be expecting in your first trimester, your second trimester, and then your third trimester. First trimester, as we remember, is probably a bit uncomfortable for most of us. Second trimester is not so bad. We've got our energy back. We're not as nauseous. Life's pretty good. And then the third trimester comes. And there's some different things that can happen in that third trimester that kind of, you're like, oh my gosh, when is this going to be over? So baby is really growing at that point. Uterus is well up above the pubic bone. You're growing, you're expanding, but some of those hormones have kicked in and joints are looser, and so you need to be mindful when you're moving and doing any exercise, things like that you don't kind of overdo it and then hurt yourself. Swelling is something else that's really common towards the latter part of the third trimester. A lot of the time feet will get swollen towards the end of the day. Some women just have swollen feet throughout, and it just progressively gets worse as the day goes on. Some women will experience some swelling in hands, face. It's all different. There's lots of ways of trying to relieve that swelling, which is something that's important to know because it makes you more comfortable in this last part. So doing things like drinking lots of fluid. We think sometimes, well, isn't that counterintuitive? We've got extra fluid on board, but by drinking lots, you're then flushing out a lot of the added fluid. It's keeping you from kind of getting dehydrated, which will suck even more fluid into that tissue. Eating protein can be very helpful as well because it allows your body, when you are starved of protein, you can retain fluid again. So making sure you've got good sources of protein in your diet. A lot of the doctors and midwives here will recommend that you use water. So if you have the ability to get in a sea or a pool and just float every day, it really can help relieve some of that discomfort that comes from the swelling. So mom is growing rapidly, as is baby in that last trimester, and you're getting closer and ready to being able to deliver. You're going to start noticing, as you get closer to that due date, baby is what we call dropping, or the head is going down deeper into the pelvis. You may notice, discomfort more in your hips as you're starting to, those hips are starting to widen to allow for the birth process. Heartburn is something else that can take place in the third trimester, and part of that is just because that baby is pushing everything up. That hormone that is released that relaxes the ligaments Also relaxes the sphincter at the top of the stomach, so it's easier for our stomach contents to kind of rise up and cause the heartburn. So eating small meals, starting to avoid the foods that can cause you to have worse heartburn is another helpful thing. Baby is developing and growing rapidly, and they're putting on, especially in those last few weeks of pregnancy to month and a half, they're kind of fattening up. So they're getting kind of a little bit of chub on them so that when they're born, they are able to better stabilize their temperature. They're starting to practice more breathing activity in utero, pooping, all that, well, not pooping, sorry, peeing, and then, digesting it through, and all that good stuff that they do while they're inside. So most of you have had prenatal visits, and you've had various tests done. That is in the book. I will skip over that part unless you have any questions about any tests that have been done, haven't been done, and you have any questions about any upcoming tests. No questions. One major last test that you both will have done is what's called your Group B strap test. That's done usually around 35 to 36 weeks in gestation, and it's just a swab that's done in the vagina and just around on the outside of the rectum. Many women commonly carry Group B bacteria in the vagina or around the rectum, and it's perfectly fine for us to have. It doesn't hurt us, but when it comes to delivering a baby, it can cause some health complications with them if mommy doesn't have antibiotics. Things like breathing trouble and just adjusting to life outside of the womb can be a little more challenging if mom is Group B strep positive and hasn't been treated with antibiotics. So that's why they do that test. Now, where am I?
And they do it to everybody.
Everybody. Well, they're supposed to do it to everybody. So, question? No. Okay. So, a lot of mummies will comment about the amount of weight that they are gaining in pregnancy. And I have this talk with almost every mom that comes through the clinic at some point. You're not fat, you're pregnant. So we're going to recreate my little "you're pregnant" chart. So, just to healthily grow a baby and have your body be pregnant, you have 7 to 8 pounds that are your baby. And that's roughly at birth. This is a normal average size baby. This is good. Bigger than that, sometimes it's a little more challenging. You have 2 pounds of amniotic fluid. Then you have 2 pounds, that's your placenta. It's a big organ. Then you have 2 pounds of increased breast tissue. Some women don't notice that they have a lot of growth in their breasts in pregnancy. They get the shock after delivery when the milk comes in, whereas other mummies, it's a more gradual progression of, growth in the breast tissue. So it's not quite as alarming, but that doesn't always, it's not always the case when it comes to breastfeeding. You have about 3 pounds of added blood fluid volume to support your circulation and babies. 2 pounds of uterine growth, and then 4 pounds of added water. So when you look at the total of it, you have to gain 22 pounds just to be pregnant and have a baby. Most women put a little more than that on. Some people will actually put less, and part of it depends on what your body needs. And that's something that I think is important for parents both to hear, because you will get the odd, partner that's like, should you be having that extra plate of food, or, do you really need more ice cream? But our bodies are they're really cool, and we know if we pay attention to our body that, if we're tired, we need sleep. You get different feelings depending on what your body needs. And so some women who are quite thin, they end up putting on extra weight because in order to support the pregnancy, they may have been a little bit underweight. Women who are at a normal weight or even a little bit heavier when they get pregnant, they might not put as much on because they've got added stores and so forth there. So that's my spiel on weight gain. And of course, my son friend's lovely whiteboard is not going to erase well. That's fine, we don't have a lot to do on the whiteboard. All right. So, a little bit on nutrition. The nice part about when we're pregnant is we do tend to eat a little bit more conscious and do tend to eat a little bit healthier some of the time because we want to do what's best for the baby and we want to, stay healthy for the baby. It's really nice that there are few limits on what you can eat and what you can't eat, but of course the stuff that you crave is the stuff that you probably shouldn't have. So when you're pregnant, the most important thing is eat your diet as normal, eat a variety of foods, and just live your life as you need to. Once baby is born, any of the foods you couldn't consume, if you're breastfeeding, you can go right back to eating them, which is brilliant.
Sushi.
Yes.
Spanish ham.
I crave blue cheese of all things.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
and cider.
Oh,
Like, these are great things. I'm like, please just give me a little sprinkle on my salad. No, you're not having any blue cheese. So it's just important to, know that there is an end coming to it. You still can eat sushi. You just have to eat sushi that's cooked versus the raw, which kind of defeats the purpose. When you get closer towards the end of the pregnancy, there are some exercises that are important to try to incorporate with getting ready for delivery. Having an active lifestyle, or as active as you can, in the pregnancy is helpful because it helps you to have the strength and the ability to go through the process of labor and delivery. Labor and delivery is a workout. Some people get lucky and it's a light walk, other people it's a marathon. And the more active you can be in pregnancy, even just simple things like going for regular walks, don't have to do spin classes, doesn't have to be a fancy prenatal class, but just being active and conscious will help. Now, in the back of the first book, there are some various different exercises, especially towards the end. Swimming is really, really, really good because it does take a lot of the pressure off of your joints, and so you can continue to swim without it affecting you, whereas walking, because your belly has gotten bigger, your sense of balance is a little bit off, it's a little more challenging. So I do try and encourage moms to get some swimming in if they can, even if it is just floating in a lawn chair and you kind of kick your feet and you call that swimming, I'm fine with that. But get in the water and do some things to be active. There are some different classes on island that also help. The Pilates class here is really fantastic, and the reason I do promote the Pilates class is because one of the main things that Leonie works on with women is strengthening that pelvic floor muscle, which is so important, for delivery and then your healing and recovery after delivery. But you don't have to come to a class. You can do your Kegel exercises at home, and that is still going to help. Doing just simple things like some light stretches, bringing the groceries in, putting things away. Those are all little ways that you can add activity in. Some positions that you can practice being in are gone over in the back of the book. Laying down and doing some pelvic tilts with your feet up. It can be on a chair, it can be on a birthing ball, it can, just off the wall, and, doing some quick pelvic tilts. That helps with those lower core muscles and also helps with the pelvic floor muscles. Squats are brilliant. Squats are your biggest friend, and preparing for squatting, because we discussed before you guys arrived, squatting is probably the best position to deliver in. We'll get into that after. But if you can start doing some squats, using an exercise ball and back up against the wall and squatting down just to help strengthen those muscles will definitely help. And even if you don't deliver in a squatting position, it's helping you just build the muscles that you need and that endurance that you will need potentially for labor and delivery. I think that was it. Yes. So there are a few warning signs that your obstetricians or midwives should have gone over with you, that if you notice any of these things happening during pregnancy, that you should contact them, because it is potentially something more serious. Some of the time it's absolutely nothing. A lot of it can be in our head. And other times it can be a little bit more serious and needs to be attended to. So there is a list on page 20 in the book. Persistent vomiting, any fever or flu-like symptoms, vaginal bleeding, any itching or foul odor from the vagina, burning sensation when urinating or having difficulty passing urine. What else is here? Any leaking of fluid or increased secretions that are abnormal or a different color than they had been. Severe headache, blurred vision, any dizziness, severe pain in the abdomen, and any pain, swelling, or redness in your thighs. If you're noticing thighs and feet, so thighs, calves, and feet. If you start noticing any of these symptoms taking place, and it's just a small discomfort, unless there's a major red area in the swelling in the legs, you can kind of bring it up at your next appointment, unless it's a really dramatic swelling that has taken place. So those are your basics on your prenatal wellness and when to see a doctor if there is a problem. So if we look at the anatomy here briefly of mummy, baby, pelvis. So pelvic floor muscles are at the base of your pubic bone. Those are kind of what keeps everything down there where it's supposed to be. So that's why your Kegels are so important while pregnant and then after. Because if they're out of whack, everything's just kind of, it's not called fallout, but it starts to fall out. So baby, when you are getting closer to due date, and some of you may now already have baby in that head down position, will start to maneuver themselves head down and moving their way down into the pelvis, getting ready for delivery. So baby is inside of this lovely big stretched grown uterus. There's fluid around the baby in the sac, the placenta, head down baby, umbilical cord. We have the cervix, the vagina, and then every woman's fear is that she's going to poop while delivering. And if you actually look at the diagram, the rectum is right here. This is your pubic bone. When baby is delivered, you push the baby's head this way first to come down and around under this bone. And so it is quite common. It is normal. You may not even know it happens. So
They don't clean you?
no, they clean you. That's why you won't
Well,
know.
but before, like,
They don't standardly do enemas anymore. And naturally, when your body goes into labor, one thing that you can pay attention to is, you know what, we've kind of gone to the bathroom a lot today. Part of our body's natural way of preparing for delivery is that we will have more frequent bowel movements to clean our bowels out. Sorry.
you're ready.
I'll be ready.
Be ready.
I don't know.
So, yeah, just stop up on Charmin and off you go. So we have 3 stages to the labor process. My very fancy posters. So the first stage, there's then another 3 phases to it. So you've got early, active, and transition. So this is all your contractions. This is getting that cervix dilated, effaced, and ready to actually push the baby out. Pushing is what we classify as second stage, and then third stage is the delivery of the placenta. So we're going to go through each one of them individually, because they're all very different and exciting. And we're also going to discuss the ways of coping and dealing with what's happening during that stage, when you should go to the hospital, and lots of other goodies. So, the physical changes that are going to take place while you are in labor and delivery. So, as baby is starting to move down, this is a uterus, by the way, and this is your cervix. So, as baby is, getting ready to be delivered, as your hormones are starting to change, your body's starting to prepare, the lower baby's head gets and starts pushing on the inside, on the cervix, is what signifies for your body, wait, there's something pushing on that cervix, to start the process of opening up. So when you out, you have this nice, long, closed-up cervix. And as you start having contractions, and you may already start dilating before you're having contractions, just from baby's head being pushed down on that inside of the cervix. But as baby's head is pushed down, as you're having some contractions, whether you're feeling them or not, what naturally starts to happen is this cervix starts to shorten. So as it shortens and flattens out, that's when we call it is effacing. So you can see it long here. Now you can see it's getting thinner. Now you can see that there's no long piece left. So you are effaced now. When they speak of how far effaced you are, they talk in percentages. So you may hear, 50% effaced. That means, you've still got kind of a bit of that neck of the cervix left. And when you're 100% effaced, it's flat up against the baby's head, basically. Then, as you are dilating, it's the opening of that cervix up to allow the baby's head and body to, as you push, or as the uterus contracts and pushes baby down, exit out of the body. In your book or your packages, I have a diagram of the dilation chart, and it is done to scale. So it shows kind of what 1 centimeter is like, 3 centimeters is like, up to the 10 centimeters. And so basically when we say 10 centimeters, it means that the opening of the uterus, the cervix, is fully flat and it has opened to 10 centimeters to allow the baby to move down through. Another thing you may hear while you're in labor and delivery, or even at a doctor's appointment or a midwife's appointment, is the station of the baby. So you may hear, the baby is at, -1. Well, if they're at -1, they're above a certain point in your pubic bone. If they're at +1, they're starting to move down past. So where that part of the head is that they can feel lets them know how far down into the pelvis that baby is versus kind of how high up it is. So there's 4 major hormones that are at work during pregnancy and then also in labor and delivery. Estrogen, the levels start to increase, which will also allow the release of oxytocin to allow the uterus to relax and make the oxytocin more effective when you are starting to release the oxytocin so that cervix will dilate. Your oxytocin is the hormone that is released to cause contractions to the uterus and to allow the uterus to work to make that cervix dilate and efface. The prostaglandins are to help soften the cervix. So that's where you will hear women and some of the older wives' tales per se of having sex to help get ready for labor or to induce labor. It's because semen has prostaglandins in it. So with it being near the cervix, it sometimes, or so they say, will help to speed things along. I think the man came up with that to try and get his last bit of fun in before he knows he's cut off. But some people absolutely swear by it. And prostaglandin is also something that will be used sometimes if women need to have an induction. It doesn't mean that if you need an induction, they're just going to go immediately to putting an IV and the oxytocin or Pitocin up. They may put a gel in the vagina up to the cervix, and that is just to help kind of start to relax the cervix. And then the relaxin, that's been in your body throughout the pregnancy, which just helps everything to stretch and relax and do what it's supposed to. Any questions at this point? Have I scared anybody off? Yes. It gets better.
What's the pain like at that stage?
At which stage?
When you're fully dilated, that's when it really kicks in, is it? Or is it crazy all the way before that?
Everybody's different. Everybody is completely different. And depending on, some women who had really, really bad periods before they got pregnant, in that they had, really bad menstrual cramps, lots of backache, they sometimes don't mind labor as bad. Whereas other women who have never really had menstrual cramps, the first little early contractions they get, like, oh my God, what is this? And it's going to get worse. And one of the main goals of the class is giving you the knowledge and techniques to cope with it. Women have been having babies for thousands and thousands of years. We are fortunate in today's society that we do have ways of managing the pain, i.e. drugs, but there are, many very natural ways of getting through the discomforts of labor and delivery without necessarily needing those, pharmaceuticals. Those people that need it, all the more power to you, and I'll give you the education for that. Your beginning stages, it's like period cramps, and sometimes you'll have contractions start, or your Braxton Hicks, which will start happening kind of any time after 34 to 36 weeks, where the uterus will contract and everything will it's almost like your uterus is flexing or your tummy is flexing, but you're not doing anything. Like, wait a minute, what's going on here? But there's no pain. It's just the muscle is doing it. Some of those early contractions that take place are doing some of the early work to get that body ready, and there's nothing that you feel. And as the days go on, you then may start noticing, some period cramps low down, you might have some backache before you really start getting more discomfort throughout. So the next booklet we're going to start looking at is the birth process. So with the last poster, we talked a little bit about the hormones that are going to start kicking in, changes that are going to start happening with the uterus, the cervix, and how baby is going to start lowering themselves down into the pelvis to get ready to come out. So due dates are a great thing to kind of have in the back of our mind because it allows us to start thinking, okay, when is baby going to come? But there's a broad gap with regards to our due dates for a lot of people because some of us know exactly when conception took place, but others of us, can be off with a little bit. And they've created kind of a month, basically, that a woman can be due in. So anytime after 37 weeks and up to 42 weeks is considered your normal due date range. The likelihood of you actually having a baby on your actual due date is actually quite low. And there's nothing wrong with, having a baby at 37 weeks, and there's nothing wrong with having a baby at 42 weeks. Most people don't have them at 42 weeks here because doctors are just paranoid of letting people go that long because the further you get, there are some higher risks. So that's why you will potentially have Dr. Midwife encouraging you to, deliver a bit sooner. So we briefly discussed your stages of labor. You've got your first stage, which is while you are dilating, then your second stage, which is when you are pushing, and the third stage is when that placenta is delivered. The uterus is a very large muscle, and as contractions are taking place, the muscle works in different ways. So you've got muscles from the bottom that will kind of contract up, that are pulling that cervix to open up. You've got
It's so painful already.
I promise, it's painful, but it's not that bad. It's not. I only had the gas because I didn't have time for anything else, and I'm still here. And the delivery I went to this week, she had nothing, and she was quite happy to have had nothing. But other people, they walk in, and I've got some cramps. I'd like my epidural now, and that's okay too. You just have to know what the pros and cons of all these things are. So as that uterus is contracting, those muscles are, and if you think about it contracting, it's a muscle. It's being flexed. So there's not always going to be pain necessarily with it. It can be uncomfortable. And with those contractions, it's a good idea to start learning now how to time them. Because even if it's a fake contraction, those Braxton Hicks, and it's just that uterine muscle contracting, if you can start kind of getting used to, okay, oh wait, this just happened. Well, let's see if another one happens. If another one happens, you can kind of time it to get used to, because that is something that you do want to be aware of, because it is something that will lead to whether or not you call your doctor or midwife, at what point you make your way to the hospital, or how long you try and manage at time a contraction, and they've got a lovely graph here for you. The other great news is there's wonderful apps that you just click a button. So you don't even have to think, and you just check, oh, I'm having this many contractions, they're this far apart, they're lasting this long. Oh, my doctor said to call them, or my midwife said, we should make our way to the hospital at this point. But the basic is, you start the timing at the beginning of a contraction, you see how long the contraction lasts, and you also time from the beginning of one contraction to the beginning of the next contraction. So that's how you gauge how far apart your contractions are and how long they're lasting. Because those are also indications, too, of potentially what stage you're at in your labor.
And you'll definitely know when it starts and when it finishes.
Most people know. The biggest thing you can do in your favor is try to manage at home as best you can before you try and transition into the hospital. The other reason is because you need to kind of have an idea of, okay, wait, this is getting uncomfortable. Yeah, these are quite regular. And just that process of getting your bags, if they're not already packed, into the car, getting into the car, sitting in a position where your hips are opening, that every pothole that your partner hits on the way and swerves erratically, can kind of intensify things for your drive to the hospital and then getting in. Movement is huge when it comes to being in labor. Movement is something that will help speed it up, but by speeding it up, you also can intensify your contraction as well, which is a good thing and bad thing all at the same time, because you want it to speed up so that it's over sooner, but it can make it a little more challenging with the discomfort that you're feeling. So your early labor, it's the longest stage of your labor. Early labor can suck for some people because it can literally last for days. Your active labor is not as long, and your transition is your shortest part of your labor. Transition is the point where most of us lose it. If you're well drugged, you probably won't. But if you're not heavily sedated, you will potentially be a little out of sorts. But we're going to discuss that and how we get through it. So, with your early first stages of labor, that is when your cervix dilates from 0 to 3 centimeters. That cervix is going to start to soften and thin out. A lot of women will go to their doctor or their midwife for their regular checkup and be 3 centimeters dilated. And it's like, I haven't had a contraction. How am I 3 centimeters dilated? And it's like your body is just naturally doing this because baby's head is down, you're having these tightenings, but there's no discomfort, and women will be like, okay, I got this. It's a great thing when that happens. Some women, that's not the case, but a lot of women, you start to soften and thin out, and you really don't notice anything. Your contractions are kind of 5 to 30 minutes apart, and they last for 10 to 45 seconds. So they're really not that long, not that often. You can usually talk through them. So, you can be kind of cleaning up in your kitchen, and it's like, oh, I feel that, and you can just carry on. If you're talking with somebody, you can have a conversation, and, you notice that it's happening, but it's nothing that is stopping you from kind of carrying on with your day. When you start actually noticing these contractions, there are a lot of emotions. This is a big one, fear, but it also brings out these feelings of excitement. So you have these really conflicting emotions. So partners, be prepared because we might just be a little bit more emotional than we normally are and very confused. Sometimes women are really restless. They can also feel quite in control and really confident, especially if they've had a doctor's appointment and it's like, oh my gosh, you're 90% effaced, that cervix is dilated, you're almost 3 centimeters, and it is. It's that, oh my God, I got this. Like, this isn't that bad. What are people talking about? So, embrace that because it's good to think back. It's like, what, I got to 3 centimeters and this was, it wasn't bad. I can get another 3 under my belt just with some breathing and so forth. There's some physical signs that you might start to notice. So sometimes you may have what we call bloody show. So you may go to the the bathroom and there might be some blood in the toilet. You may wipe and notice some paint-tinged mucus or blood-tinged mucus on the toilet paper. And basically what's happening is as that cervix starts to open and dilate, it's very vascular, and so some of the little blood vessels will bleed as you're kind of stretching and opening. You may have some cramping that's going on. Usually in the early stages of labor, it's low. It's like period cramps that you're feeling when you're having those cramps. You may have some pressure, so just from baby's head kind of starting to go down deeper into that pelvis, and what we describe as tightenings, which is that whole kind of tummy just kind of flexing basically and tightening. You may have the loose bowels or having to use the bathroom a bit more frequently. A lot of women will experience some backache with some light cramps. Some of the times why we will get the backaches also has to do with the position that baby is in. So some women will end up with more discomfort in their back during labor, and they can have quite bad back pains depending on the position that baby is in. Sometimes women will have flu-like symptoms, so they're actually in labor, but they just don't feel well. They don't know why. So they've gone to the doctor and it's like, I've just really been feeling crappy, I go to the bathroom a lot, I don't have, my appetite's not the same, just not well, and they check and, you're in labor. So they send you home if they're good midwives and doctors, because you don't need to be in the hospital at this point. You may have an intense urge to clean your house, get everything organized, cook. Those are other signs to kind of watch for, unless that's naturally in your personality. This could last for a long time. Pace yourself. It's very common that we get very excited, especially with our first baby. You feel kind of those first contractions. Oh my gosh, it's happening. Okay, well, what did we learn in the class? Okay, I need to do my breathing. Every contraction, the breathing goes on, and it's like, well, I gotta move. So you start pacing around and walking, and you're doing your squats, and then in an hour, you're exhausted because you just put yourself through a complete workout for no reason at this point. So pace yourself. If the contractions are uncomfortable, take a moment, relax. Move around, but go about your normal day. Don't kind of stop everything. Like, there's a contraction. Okay, we've got to start. Go about your normal day is the best advice I can give you. So distract yourself. If you've got errands to run, go run your errands. If you have to go to work because you're a little bit earlier than when you were planning on going off, go into the office, answer some emails, do what you can. If you're at home and it's in the evening, it's time to go to bed, go to bed. Get sleep. If you're home during the day and you can lay down and rest, do that. Watch TV, read a book, have coffee, maybe get your stuff organized, because you could be going to the hospital in a few hours, but you might not have to go for another day or so. But do whatever you can to distract yourself. Eating and drinking in this stage of labor when you're still at home is really important too. Often when people, pretty much always when you get into the hospital, they stop you from eating. You can still drink fluids, but they will stop you from eating. One of the reasons they do that, especially here, is because if there is a chance that you have to go for a C-section, it's better that you haven't eaten, because it can cause more issues with regards to the delivery process and the fact they are doing an operation on you. But if you're at home, don't have a big plate of Indian, but eat foods that are going to, give you energy and that are easy on your system. So things like toast, light fruits, bananas, broths, keeping well hydrated. Now, once you get into the hospital, they'll allow you to have water and clearer fluids. So if you take Gatorade with you, coconut water, those are all things that you can have during the delivery process. Most doctors and midwives are completely comfortable with that. And then once baby's delivered, then they'll give you food again. So eat and drink beforehand. So those are your early first stages. Any questions about this part?
Where does the water breaking come into it?
It may not break.
What is water breaking?
So your water breaking is basically the amniotic sac of fluid that the baby is living in. So this is our baby and its amniotic sac. It's very big. So this is the placenta up here, and baby is basically in a big bag of water, which is the amniotic fluid. So when that water breaks, basically what happens is it air is there and the fluid that is in around the baby comes out. Some women, their water doesn't break. Some babies can actually be born, and we call it, they were born in the cull. So literally the baby is born in the sac of water. Doesn't happen very often because most of the time their membranes will rupture, or at some point during the labor and delivery process, midwife or doctor will rupture the membranes to help facilitate speeding up the delivery process. But basically what that means is that the waters that are around the baby have released. Some women will experience a slow trickle. Some women will have that movie type, oh my God, my water just broke. But that's not always the case. So that's what it is when your water breaks. And that can happen before labor even starts, and you might not have your waters break until you're about 9 centimeters dilated, and it's done by somebody else.
So if it does break in the first stages, that's not like a trigger to go to hospital?
That is one of the triggers to
Oh, right,
potentially
okay.
go to the hospital, unfortunately. It would be nice if we could stay at home a bit longer, but it is one reason that to go to the hospital, because we want to know kind of what color the fluid was, if there was any foul odor to it, make sure baby is doing okay without the fluids there. So that is one of those times that you would look at going to the hospital.
So you would have the small contractions and then these could break.
Absolutely.
So how, like, if you're working, like, am I gonna feel the contractions? Like, I don't want to have this in the office, you know what I mean?
This is the fabulous part about
Yeah.
labor and delivery. We don't have a lot of control over it.
Could you imagine?
I can. And then, you have those moments as, things expand and change, and you think your water's broken, and you go to the hospital, and no, you just peed yourself. This happens. This is not abnormal because baby moves, and everything's relaxed, and something trickles out, and you're like, oh my gosh, my water broke. You get, no, you just passed a bit of urine. It's okay. You can go home. Go back home. Everybody's different. And a lot of people don't get that kind of dramatic water break. So you could be at work, could start feeling some contractions, and literally could contract all the way up to being fully dilated with your membranes completely intact. The delivery I went to this week, woman was at 9 centimeters and they popped her waters. She hadn't broken her waters at that point. And so they ruptured the membranes so that that head would come down a little bit harder on the cervix to kind of get that last centimeter of dilation over with. The more pressure that is on the cervix and the more baby has moved down into that pelvis and is pushing down on the cervix from the inside, the more rapidly the cervix dilates. So, that was our early stages. Everybody's doing okay so far?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So, after talking about those early stages, if you are having some discomfort, this is just a general question for everybody to think about. If you're stressed, what are some things that your body does naturally? So some people will want to eat more if they're stressed. Other people will want to eat less if they're stressed. Some people want to spend time with people to kind of distract themselves, whereas others want to kind of retreat and kind of spend time with themselves in just a quiet environment. Think about these things as you're getting closer to that labor and delivery process, because understanding yourself and your response to stress can help you when you're going through labor and delivery, because it can be a stressful time. So if you know that, dim lights, quiet room works well for you, being distracted, then those are things that you're going to want to carry over into potentially your labor and delivery process. If, you don't mind having, people kind of coming and going, having things to distract you like music or, somebody telling you jokes or cracking jokes with you as you're going through this, those are things to be mindful of. Practice some different relaxation techniques that work for you. Some people, it's in one of the books, it might be in this going through some different guided imagery, so laying down or visualizations, just laying down, relaxing, and thinking different thoughts to relax yourself. Some people will think of, a wave as the contraction is coming. They'll continue to go back to that thinking of a wave when they were in a relaxed state. So it's kind of like a wave is coming in, it's crashing over me, I'm like sand, it's nice and warm, there's a cocktail near enough to me that I can almost taste it, this is a good day. So you feel that wave come in and wash over you, and then it goes away. Doing little things like that gets into kind of your hypnobirthing, which for some women works really, really well because it makes them focus on something else. It's not, oh my God, a contraction's coming, it's going to hurt, it's going to hurt. You're thinking, okay, I can relax, I can breathe through this, I'm just chill, this is good. And there's a few different little exercises in the books that you can go through to work on, which really, some people find it really does help. Music is a distraction when you're in labor. It can either distract you because you just concentrate on listening to the music, it's a positive song, and I've had every kind of music played in a delivery you can imagine. I have had proper nightclub dance music, I've had very classical music. It depends on what works for you. And what you think might work isn't what you're going to want when you're actually in labor, and it's like switch, switch, switch. So be prepared, go through these little things of what can distract you, because it really makes the process a little more comfortable. Your physical comfort is really important in the whole labor and delivery process. This is the book we're going to look at now for a little bit. So there's all kinds of things that will make you comfortable throughout your labor and delivery process. It can also be things that you have done in pregnancy. So as you've gone through pregnancy, things are a little more uncomfortable, and some women will have massage done, some women will do chiropractic therapy, other women can do acupuncture or acupressure. There is, hot and cold works really well if you're having, low back pain. Sometimes those early cramps, just like if you were having period cramps, you may find that you want to do kind of warm pad on the tummy. And then as you are starting to have a bit more symptoms with your labor and delivery, some of the further coping mechanisms for that physical comfort are there. So your breathing will become important to you. The difference with my thoughts with regards to how you breathe in labor and delivery versus some of the other methods of teaching is that there's no right way or wrong way to breathe when you're in labor and delivery. It's not a matter of a pattern, breathe in and puff out in a certain pattern. Breathe. Breathe with what works for you. If you stubbed your toe, how do you breathe? Think about that. If you have discomfort in the next coming weeks, think about what your breathing is like, or if you have something that's uncomfortable. We're going to do an activity in a few minutes that will, make this a little more, it's not painful, it's just, it'll give you an idea. But that breathing's important, and if you can concentrate on breathing in your nose and out your mouth, I find it really works well for mummies, because you're getting good deep breaths, because it's a little bit slower to breathe through your nose deeply and then blow it out your mouth. Moving around is important. When we start going through labor, as the baby is moving down into the pelvis and getting ready to come out, baby themselves goes through different movements. And so by a woman being able to be upright, to be able to walk around, to be able to lean over, sway her hips, moving in different positions, allows that baby to actually move the way it's supposed to. If you just lay down in a bed, it's not going to work. I mean, you will dilate, you will deliver, but it's going to be a longer process, it can be a more painful process, and more challenging process. So move. When at any stage in your labor, move. Worst thing you can do is get forced into a bed and stay in bed. That's just like beds should not even be in a delivery room in some theories, because it's that you see a bed, it's like, oh, I have to lay down. But no, you want to be up, you want to be moving. Finding comfortable positions, so that goes all along with that movement. If Standing up is getting uncomfortable, sit down. If you are getting tired, lay down, but get back up. And you should change your position roughly every 20 to 30 minutes in the labor and delivery process, especially when you're getting into your more active stage of labor.
Do they allow you to bring the ball with you?
Yes, and I do recommend that if you want to use a ball, take your own. They do have balls there, but you might not get it. It might not be the right size for you. And in my world, you don't know who was on it last, and
they help you just kind of sit and bounce on them.
they're awesome. So let's grab a ball. So the reason balls are so great is because, now if I go flying off of this, I'm taking it off the video. So you can sit on the ball and you can open your legs up, which is allowing your hips to open. You can rock side to side, which is allowing different movement. You can go in circles, which helps to open everything up. You can lean forward, you can lean backward. Another thing you can use your ball for is you may, depending on if you're having a lot of back labor, you may want to lean and lay over the ball, because that allows your back to have a break, because what's happening is the gravity and weight of baby and your tummy is hanging forward. And what often happens, why women will get back labor, is because as baby is moving, and whatever position baby is in, if baby is what we describe as back to back with mummy, so this is mummy's spine. If baby is coming down basically sunny side up, and his or her back is near mummy's back, that's when mummy gets a lot of discomfort in her back. And part of the reason is because the head is coming through at a slightly wider angle than the natural way of coming down. You want baby to come tummy to back out of mummy. So if you're getting a lot of discomfort in your back, baby could be sideways. It could be that baby is trying to rotate to get into that position of coming tummy to back as they deliver. But if you're getting a lot of discomfort on that back, being able to get into different positions helps. And with the ball, it can make a huge difference because you've got a support. It can be even things like you're putting, just like when you're doing exercises, you can put the ball up against a wall and kind of rub up and down it. You know, if you're at home having some early labor and you're having some backache and you don't have somebody to kind of rub your back for you, you can kind of get a bit of massage on that lower back. So yes, absolutely take your ball in. Some women find vocalization is helpful. They don't always love it if you're quite vocal, depending on how busy things are. And we've got some videos to watch as well. But there are, screaming is not good. We don't necessarily want screaming. But a woman who's in earlier labor or in your active stage of labor, moaning and low vocalizations can sometimes help. The vibrations and so forth can help relax mummy and they can relax baby. A lot of women don't want to make any noise for pride, but it really can help. Said the hot and cold compresses. Find out what works for you now. So if at any point you're feeling, you've got some backache, you've gone to a spin class and things are a little sore than they normally are, or, you are starting to get, the odd little cramp every now and again, think about what normally would give you relief. Have those prepared to go with you at the hospital. They have lots of ice there, so you can make, little ice packs to kind of put on the back if that's something that, gives you relief. But you may want to take something like a heating pad with you if that's something else that gives you relief. Or you can get, I think of the mitten warmers from Canada, but the little hot packs that you can crack, and then you've got a hot pack for the back as well. Water is another huge thing that will give you relief and comfort. In the early stages of labor, if you're kind of questioning, am I in labor or am I not, a great thing to try is to have a warm bath. If the contractions stop, you're not in labor. If the contractions don't stop, your chances are you're in labor. But if you're not in the active phase of labor, it may slow things down a bit by getting in the warm bath, just simply because it's relaxing you a bit. but it's a really great way to get a break. It's relaxing, it takes some of the pressure off, and you know, if you don't have a tub, just even having a shower, just the hot water can really make things different. If you've got some back pain with regards to a labor, leaning forward, letting the shower kind of beat down on where you're having the discomfort will help. Using the bathroom is actually a good thing because it can relieve some of the pressure. Just because as baby is coming down, if that bladder is full, it impedes baby being able to come down. So frequently going to the bathroom or trying to go to the bathroom is a good thing. Wear comfortable clothes. Don't be uncomfortable. Like, don't try and hold everything in when you're starting to labor. You want to be comfortable. Staying calm and focused is important as well. It's kind of hard at times to stay calm and focused because, you know, we're not exactly sure what we're getting into. So with regards to your different activities you can do, one of the things that a lot of mummies will find really comforting when they are going through labor is massage. So sometimes it's just holding mummy's hand and just doing some hand massage. Firm pressure usually is more preferred to a woman when she's in labor versus light touch. Light touch can actually be quite irritating to women when they're in labor. Just forewarning you, if that's something normally you would, you know, be on the couch and, oh, honey, would you tickle my arm? Would you tickle my back? You know, that's what we may like in a normal day. When we're in labor, we want some firm hands. We want some support. Yeah. Okay, no problem. Sitting in a chair, you know, you may want your feet rubbed. You know, if you have been having a bit of a longer labor and delivery process and walking around, feet are getting tired because you've got the added weight, you know, contractions, sit down, have your feet rubbed, have your hand rubs. These are all things that help. A tennis ball is a great thing to have in your bag to go to the hospital. Or if you have any of the hard plastic massage tools, those work really, really well also. Because often, especially if you're having a lot of back labor, the amount of pressure that women want to help relieve the discomfort, it's really difficult for our partners to maybe have the strength to do it for any length of time. So something like a tennis ball works really well. A can of soda works also well. You don't have to go and buy anything fancy, but if you want to, you can. That's up to you. But it's just flat in the hand and then rubbing in circular motions or up and down on whatever area it is that's uncomfortable. You know, it can even be along the shoulders, depending on how tense mom has gotten, you know, in different areas of the back. And it really does make a difference for some mummies. The breathing, we briefly discussed that. So when it comes to breathing, it's just breathe normally. If you've ever done exercise, think of how you breathe when you're exercising. You know, your breaths do get a bit faster, but you need to kind of control your breathing. In your nose, out your mouth. In your nose, out your mouth. That's all you have to think about. You can make noises as you're breathing it out, so that moaning and vocalization can come into play. So it can be a breath in and as it's coming out. It's a moan a lot of the time or a groan. We've all been in pain where it's like, oh, that really hurt. But that's what you're doing, and it does help some women cope. Finding rhythms and ritual with regards to how you're coping is important as well. And when I say rhythms and ritual, if you see your partner and she has a contraction coming on and you watch her and she starts going, oh, and her foot's tapping, or she might rub her belly as that's happening. If you notice that she's done that for the last couple of contractions, don't touch her. Don't touch her. No, because she's coping. She's found a way that's coping and that's getting her through each one of those contractions. Between the contraction, things will change. She may go back to being able to move around or talk to you, you know, say nice things. Other times, you know, she's just going to be really quiet and stay within herself. And you'll know that contraction is coming back because all of a sudden she'll start doing the same thing over and over again. And it may be very random. I had been in a class where the woman had been cooking, and she just literally started saying, I'm going to keep stirring, I'm going to keep stirring, I'm going to keep stirring, and this is what she did. It got her through those contractions, and when a woman has found a ritual and a rhythm and a routine, she's coping in labor. And coping in labor is different than not being able to cope and suffering. When there's just erraticness, mummy's not coping. That's when, yes, as much as we don't want to concentrate on our partners, they have to see, okay, this isn't working, how can I help? Okay, let's just do a deep breath this time. Deep breath in your nose, blow it out. Does a massage help? And just asking different questions to kind of bring you back to a state of being able to cope with the discomfort that you're experiencing. All right, let's do the pain and breathing. Does anybody want bathroom snacks? We'll take a few minutes before we do this.
Nothing looks good.
You guys are going to think I'm nuts after this.
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, I had bacon, egg, beans, and toast yesterday morning for breakfast, so
What happened?
I'm being healthy today.
And it's a balance, if you want, to do things slightly differently and have some junk food, it's that trade-off.
I feel like if I actually try and eat really healthily during the week.
I think it's the,
It's the chapel.
yeah, I think it's the try that's important.
I try to eat healthfully.
Well, time is important.
Let myself to Bay Market and have the veggies.
Yeah.
When did you do that?
4th of August.
Oh wow, okay.
Yeah.
And how about yourself?
26th of September.
Yeah, we could do that one. We're having our kitchen done and it's not actually started yet.
Oh wow.
It's not that that's the whole downstairs.
Oh no.
Yeah.
I need this baby
And a
to
new
come like,
4-foot in.
right on time, it's not late.
Like not too early for sure.
No, I swear. As soon as you're trying to have a baby, everything goes.
Yeah.
People will end up with floods. Do this. And then you will end up with, renovations that haven't happened the way they're supposed